Hi, everybody. It's Marlene. Hi. Hi, Joanne. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Julie. All J's today. Hi. As you know, Karina is on the East Coast this weekend, so I'll be doing the Dharma talk today. And we'll be talking about building unconditional love, acceptance, and trust in ourselves. So let's get into a comfortable position just to do a little grounding meditation at the beginning of our Dharma talk. Hi. So I'll be leading the Dharma talk today in case you're a little surprised to see my face. I'm usually on here anyway, but I'm not usually the one who does it. Perfect. So in our comfortable position, closing the eyes if that feels good, or just focusing them down on the ground. We'll start to breathe deep and free into the belly. And settling in. Starting to slow down the breath just a little bit. Sort of happens naturally when we slow down our thoughts and our activity, the breath begins to slow. And if you're seated on a chair like I am, you can notice how the feet feel pressing into the ground. And if you're seated on your bottom on the ground, you can just notice where the legs and the feet are touching the ground. Seated in a chair, notice your sitting bones pressing down into the seat, softening the shoulders, just noticing that belly breath. The belly grows with the inhale, and the belly button pulls back during the exhale. Spine gets a little longer, a little taller. And the space around the heart, both the front and the back of the heart, just notice how that space feels, the sensations around the heart. Notice any softening as you breathe into the belly, around the heart, around the shoulders and the neck. Just notice the sensations there and sort of resist the desire to label the sensations good or bad. Instead, just notice what you feel. Just breathe into what you feel. Softening the jaw. Feeling the muscles in the forehead smooth. And notice all the muscles surrounding the head soften, especially around the crown of the head, the very top of the head. Notice any sensations around the head or the space of the mind. Notice the texture of the mind today. And take a moment here. You can place the left hand on the heart if you would like, or not. Either one works. And ask yourself what you're needing to receive today during this Dharma talk. What would you like to receive? However, the answer appears to you, whether through a word or a phrase, sensation, through stillness or silence. All perfectly acceptable answers. Taking one more breath here, deep inhale, and exhale it out the mouth. Bringing the hands to the heart, thumbs resting at the heart space. May our Dharma talk today lead you to more clarity, more peace, and more connection. May you receive the deepest healing available to you today. So whenever you're ready, you can release the hands and start to flutter the eyes open. Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Today, we're going to be discussing how to build unconditional love, acceptance, and trust in ourselves. And this is definitely these states of being, of unconditional love, acceptance, and trust in ourselves. They in order to have them, they must be cultivated. So today we'll talk a little bit about why they're important and how to cultivate them. And then before we leave, we'll do a meditation together and practice a little bit about what I talk about with building unconditional love, acceptance, and trust. So from the Buddhist point of view, you really have to care about yourself and for yourself before you can really care about others and for others. You really have to set that foundation. And radical acceptance, which is one of the things that Karina talks about a lot, and also my teacher Tara Brock talks a lot about radical acceptance. It's a combination of cultivation of mindfulness and compassion. So first, we need to be mindful so that we can pause and recognize what it is that we're feeling and experiencing from moment to moment. But we also need to cultivate compassion so that we can accept our experiences and our emotions and ourselves, however we show up every day. So radical acceptance is also a really big part of this cultivating unconditional love, acceptance, and trust. So how do we do that? How do we cultivate that self-love? How do we cultivate that acceptance and that trust in ourselves? Well, it's a practice, as I mentioned, or I like to say it's like cultivating a garden. We can't just throw the seeds down in a garden and expect them to grow. We have to water them and take care of them and feed them. They need sunlight. So it's kind of like cultivating a garden. It takes time, but it can be done. And so one of the ways that I make sure to set that foundation to cultivate love for myself is that I try to increase my physical self-regulation so that I can expand clear thinking. And so physical regulation, how our bodies feel, it's about sustaining or creating a sense of calmness, alertness, It's like that state of being calm, focused, and alert. There it is. That was the word I was missing. So, a lot of times, we might feel very slow in our bodies, but we can't focus. Or other times we're hyper alert. We're aware of everything that's happening around us. And again, we can't focus. So it's really that balance of being calm, focused, and alert. And I know that most of you, not all of you, but most of you have practiced yin yoga with Karina. Yoga is one way to cultivate that physical self-regulation in the body. So basically, taking care of our bodies leads to a calmer mind, a clearer mind, which allows us to cultivate that self-love, acceptance, and trust. So it can be, other things we can do to cultivate self-regulation, to create self-regulation for ourselves, is make sure we drink enough water during the day. It's really basic stuff, but we do forget. Make sure you eat enough good food that nourishes you, that takes care of you and tastes yummy, but is also good for you. Water, food, and sleep. Sleep is really, really important. If you're not getting enough sleep, that's really common. I have a little app on my phone that keeps track of my sleep with my little watch that I wear 24 hours a day. And it often tells me I'm not getting enough sleep, or the opposite. It rewards me with a little sound if I do get enough sleep, but I don't get that sound very often. So it's not uncommon to not get enough sleep, especially if you have little ones, or maybe you're just like me and you just have a hard time falling asleep and staying asleep. So that's where like the other practices, like good food, water, and like something like a yoga practice or some sort of activity, not something that totally wears you down, but maybe something that just, gets your blood flowing, like a nice walk or anything like that, that helps you feel more calm and focused and alert in your body. So I like to teach restorative yoga, which is similar to yin yoga. We tend to use things like blankets and blocks for the body during restorative yoga. And that's a really good practice that doesn't take a lot of activity, but it's very relaxing to the body. So there's one little, it's a big foundation to how we cultivate love, acceptance, and trust in ourselves. And let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about love. And I have this quote by Rumi that I really love, but it also sometimes brings up a little bit of resistance inside of me. And the quote is, "Your path is not to seek for love, but merely to find all the barriers within yourself you have built against it." So I'll repeat that. Your path is not to seek for love, but merely find all the barriers within yourself you have built against it. So there's for me, I get this little anxiety when I read that, because I think, wow, did I really build that many barriers? Well, let's not worry about that. The past is the past, and maybe those barriers were built in relationship with our caregivers. Maybe those barriers were built when we were hurt in relationships. It doesn't really matter why the barriers were built. We're humans. We want to protect ourselves from being hurt, and so we build the barriers. But instead, let's seek ways in which we can take those barriers down and really open our hearts to love, especially towards ourselves. So again, going back to that first point I made of loving ourselves first and cultivating that self-love. Well, let's think about how you take care of things that you do love. Like, again, going back to that metaphor of a garden, I'm just going to use a plant here. Like, how well do you take care of your plants? Or how well do you take care of those things that you love, like a pet or a child, or anything, anybody that you really love and care about? How well do you take care of them? Well, that's how well you have to take care of yourself. So those things that you do for others that you love, like give them attention, your undivided attention, That's what you do for the people you love. You sit and you listen and you want them to be heard. So that's what you do for yourself. So making time for yourself, like the Dharma talk, to just give your undivided attention to yourself. One of the reasons meditation is so powerful is because it is exactly that, dedicating a period of time of undivided attention towards yourself. So things like that. You feed the people you love. Make sure you feed yourself. Make sure you feed yourself yummy foods that are good for yourself. What things do you love to do? Like, these are just little things that you can do throughout the day consistently. Put yourself to bed. Tuck yourself in bed at a reasonable hour instead of trying to get everything done. Just look at the things that you would want for your loved ones and do those things for yourself. One of the ways that I cultivate self-love that's been really, really effective is the metta meditation. And we'll do a little bit of metta meditation after we're done talking about love, acceptance, and trust. But metta meditation is specifically about cultivating love and kindness towards yourself first, and then towards the world. Once again, starting with yourself. May I be happy. May I be safe and free from harm. May I be healthy. May I feel and be loved. May I have a peaceful heart. May I have the strength, the courage, and the conviction to face the challenges before me and come through them with more clarity, peace, happiness, and wisdom. And that's just one example of a metta meditation I do every day for myself and for my children and loved ones. So it really, in order to cultivate self-love, it's about taking time for yourself and giving yourself what you need, meeting your needs, both physical and emotional, turning that love inward towards yourself that you share with others. That's really the magic of cultivating love, especially for yourself. You got to turn that love inward. Now, acceptance. I put these in sort of the order that I believe cultivating them will be the most beneficial and bring the most ease. So first, we cultivate self-love. What about self-acceptance? Karina asks a really great question, and it's pretty much at the bottom of every single one of her emails. And that question is, who am I if nothing is wrong with me? Who am I if nothing is wrong with me? We spend so much time pointing out the things that aren't going right, the things that we're not getting right. Who made up those rules? Most likely they were planted there deep in our subconscious when we were little and by our caregivers, but our caregivers had them planted as well for them when they were very little. So we use the tools we have. And so these are the tools that we've developed. So we use them. But the good news is the brain, the mind is, well, let's talk about the brain. The brain is neuroplastic. It can change. Our thought patterns can change. And so one of the ways we change them is by changing the story. Just adding some people who just came in. We change the story. And we change the story by focusing on what's good and what's right, what we're getting right, instead of what's not going right or what's negative. It's very, very easy to focus on what's negative because of what's called the negativity bias. It's basically hardwired into us. It's actually there even before our parents and caregivers. It comes from our ancestors who needed to be aware of differences in their environment in order to stay safe. You know, like you need to notice that the grass is rustling because there might be a tiger or a very large animal that is your predator. And so we used to have to pay very close attention to what was not right in our environment. But we don't really have a natural predator anymore. We're pretty safe. We don't need to pay attention in such detail to what's not sort of the norm or what is not in our eyes right. The work is to focus on what is right, to cultivate that understanding of what is right. And so that's another practice that really supports the self-love and the acceptance is focusing on what is right. That's a practice. We have to practice it. Someone that I listen to a lot says that we don't need to take a class in gravity. We know exactly how gravity works. We don't need to, we don't need to learn about gravity, but there are other things we do need to learn about. So what's not going right comes very naturally to us. It's the practice of cultivating, noticing what is going right, what is happening, what you are getting done. Focusing on that is really, really beneficial. Really, really beneficial to developing the self-love and the self-acceptance. And the self-acceptance, well, here we go with radicalness again. So I talked about radical acceptance. How about some radical compassion? Radical compassion. It's radical to have compassion for ourselves because we're typically stuck on that negativity bias, right? So accepting ourselves exactly as we are, cultivating that connection with what is right, what is beautiful, what we are getting done, is helping us see the balance in the world and helping us to balance. And when we're more balanced, it's easier to have compassion. It's easier to accept ourselves exactly as we are without judgment, cultivating that sense of what is right, what is beautiful. For me, those practices have to do with going out into nature and taking a walk. And for me, nature is right outside my door. Walking down my block, there are a ton of trees. 2 blocks away, there's a park. I'm very lucky in that nature is all around me. There's nature everywhere. The sky, looking up into the beautiful sky, watching the clouds go by. This morning there was beautiful cloud covering as the sun came up, and it just made the sunrise so beautiful. Taking time to notice those things. This is the cultivation of what is right. This is what helps us with self-acceptance. When all your eggs are in one basket, the basket of negativity, it's going to be really hard to accept yourself. But when we cultivate this connection and this turning towards what is right and noticing what is right, we start to feel the balance in life. And so accepting ourselves as we are, having that radical acceptance for ourselves, even when we're not meeting our own expectations, because that's probably the biggest thing getting in our way of accepting ourselves, is that we don't meet our own expectations. We have these really high expectations for ourselves, and we don't notice what we're getting right. We're always focused on what we're not getting right, and I say this constantly with little quotes because who made up those rules? I mean, think about it. And if you were talking to a friend and you were telling them that, your kid woke up sick and they were crying all day and you couldn't get the laundry done and you had to pay extra attention to them, so the house was a mess and things broke or they fell, and you were really feeling down on yourself because you didn't get as much done as you expected of yourself, your friend would say, "What are you talking about? You were taking care of a sick child. You were really, really busy doing the very important work of life. Cut yourself a break." So start talking to yourself the way a good friend does. And usually to create that experience of being able to be your own best friend and being able to love and accept yourself and have radical compassion and radical acceptance for yourself as we cultivate that turning towards what is right. I highly recommend this. Turn towards what is right. Notice what is beautiful. Notice. Ah. So another thing that I do when I don't have access to being outside or looking at the sky, or it's a gray day and I can't see the sun, or it's raining and I can't go out for a walk. I can when it's raining, but I usually get cold and wet here in Southern California. Is that I just take really full deep breaths and I just give myself time and space to feel whatever it is I'm feeling. And to put my hand over my heart and just tell myself that I'm going to be okay, that it sucks right now and I don't feel good, but I'm going to give myself the space and the time I need so that I can be okay. Because it's automatic. We go to the get it together, suck it up. You're being a big fat baby. At least I do. I go straight there. And I don't give myself the space and time I need to feel my emotions. So even though I'm telling you to turn towards what is beautiful and what is good and what is true in our lives, I'm also letting you know it's okay to love and accept whatever shows up, and to make space and time. That's a big part of self-love. And it's a big part of cultivating self-acceptance, and to be able to give yourself the space and time you need, even if you have to postpone it for a little while because your life is really crazy and you're in the middle of caregiving in some way, or whatever else is happening that's preventing you from being able to take the space and time. Just promise yourself and follow through. That comes to the next point, which is trust. But follow through with yourself and give yourself what you need, even if you have to postpone it for a little bit. So something else I do as I'm taking those deep, full breaths is that I just take a moment to recognize where in my body I feel tension. And I let the breath go to that tension and move around that tension. And then when I'm ready to exhale, I just notice that some of the tension leaves the body with the breath. So when we're feeling a really big emotion like sadness or grief or overwhelm, parts of our body get tight. And for me, it's often the throat or behind the heart or in the front of the heart, but mostly it's in the throat and behind the heart. It gets really tight and almost painful, almost to the point of like searing or sharp pain. And so I just really, really sweetly put my hands over my heart and I breathe into that sensation of pain. And I focus on that sensation, letting the breath enter and leave the body, noticing that every time I exhale, even just the tiniest little bit of tension releases. And so that's a way of showing yourself self-love and cultivating that self-acceptance, accepting where you are in the moment, which may be totally overwhelmed. And so in this practice of just breathing into that sensation, we're pausing to allow the experience to be here without judgment, without effort, without a story. We're just focusing on the breath, and whatever happens, happens. Tears flow, it's okay. Tears don't flow, it's okay. Just letting go of those thoughts and your stories and bringing your full attention to what is happening inside you. And discovering the feelings and sensations in your body and where they are strongest, and just breathing into them. And usually when I take time to do this little activity, this little practice, is I ask myself, just like I had you ask yourself during the practice, what do I need? What do I most need in this moment? What do I need? Is it acceptance? Is it a protection, understanding, compassion, love, kindness, forgiveness? What do I need? Call on your wisest and most loving version of yourself and offer what is most needed. And just take a moment after that and notice how this part of you that's been holding tightness responds to the question and to the compassion that's offered. If it's difficult, that's okay. Often things that we have not practiced and that are new to us are difficult, so it's okay. You can also reach out to someone that you really trust. You can also reach out to a pet, like a dog or a cat. They offer unconditional love. But give yourself the nourishing and the nurturing that you need when you can. These things, they must be cultivated. They do not grow on their own. As I mentioned before, we have that negativity bias. That grows on its own, especially when left to its own devices. When we do feed it, when we do water it, the negativity bias that grows, and the garden of nurturing and love and acceptance and trust. Well, what happens to a garden when we don't feed it? It dies. So we have to do these practices in order to cultivate that love and that passion and that acceptance and that trust in ourselves. That's how we build the trust, is by cultivating the garden. And we're going to talk about that next. Just remember, it's not going to happen on its own. Just little times in your day where you can find some stillness and give yourself what you need. Focus on the beautiful. Even in moments when you're just out and about, you can find something to look at that's beautiful. There's always something around that's beautiful. So trust. And that's been the hardest one for me. I mean, acceptance is pretty hard. And self-love has been a journey, but trust, that was a really challenging one for me. And the thing about trust is, just like the garden is cultivated, trust is more like a building. It has to be built. And so what I ask you is to write down, if you're writing things down, or if not, just take mental note. What are the qualities of a person that you trust? What are the qualities of a person that you trust? And just think about that. What are the qualities of a person that I trust? And those are the qualities that you're going to cultivate towards yourself. You're in relationship with yourself. One of my master teachers, Brian Kess, says that the one relationship that you're in from your first breath to your last is the one with yourself. That relationship needs to be taken care of. That relationship needs to be nurtured. That relationship needs to grow. That's the one that's really, really with you from the beginning to the very, very end. And so those qualities of someone you trust, how often do you have those qualities towards yourself? How often do you make yourself promises and follow through? But like anything else, kind of like riding a bike or starting a physical yoga practice or starting to run, the practice of running, anytime that we start something that's brand spanking new to us, it's really unfamiliar, we start with very small things. We don't start with the big stuff because we're just setting ourselves up for failure. We want to set ourselves up for success. So you start with tiny little practices, like, I don't know, every day I'll make myself my favorite cup of tea at a certain time of day. For me, it's first thing in the morning. Drag myself out of bed, go to the bathroom, and then head for the kitchen to make myself my favorite cup of tea. And then I sit and I drink that cup of tea all by myself. I make my husband one too. He goes off to work, and then I sit by myself. And so setting those small practices, it can be anything. It can be 5 minutes sitting outside on a patio chair, watching the sky. It can be a shower every day at the same time. It can be a favorite pair of pajamas. It can be anything that you say, I'm going to do this consistently for myself. And you follow through and you notice, I'm following through. I'm doing it. I can trust myself when I make myself a promise. I can trust myself. So set small practices that are easy. Maybe they're already things you're doing. You just start to notice. You start to be mindful. You start to notice that you're doing it. And have a lot of compassion for your old patterns because they're hard to break. Patterns, behavioral patterns, old patterns, they're neural network patterns in the brain. And so our brains are going to automatically go down the pathways that are the easiest to go down, and building new pathways, they're a little rougher pathways. So the mind doesn't automatically go down those pathways. That's why we have to cultivate and grow the new practices. So just be really compassionate for your old patterns. Notice that if you're engaged in an old pattern, just notice and be like, oh, that's an old pattern. No judgment, no criticism. Then you have the opportunity to change it, to shift the pattern. And that's why we want the shift to be small. But that is how you cultivate that trust in yourself. So before we move into meditation, I just want to ask a few questions that you might ask yourself on a daily basis when you have time, especially if you have a meditation practice. How is it that you want to be loved? In what way do you want to be loved? And how do you want to be accepted? How do you want to be accepted? And then lastly, it's a question that I've already had you ask. How does someone that you trust behave? I said, what are the qualities of someone that you trust? But you can also ask yourself, how does someone that I trust behave? And these are the things you're going to do for yourself. That's a pretty surefire way to set yourself up for success, is simply sitting with yourself and thinking about what ways you want to be loved, what ways you want to be accepted, and how someone you trust behaves, and behave that way towards yourself. All righty. Let's see. So yeah, it's perfect time for us to set up for our meditation. Those are the little papers I was reading off of. All my own notes, all based on a workshop that I taught called Worthy, how to build unconditional love, acceptance, and trust in yourself. Just a little cliff notes from that workshop. So come into a comfortable position, and it can be seated, it can be laying down, do whatever feels good. Don't assume there's only one way to meditate. There are guidelines, but you can always do what works for you. I think that's what's best. And then settling into your seat, release the breath and start to breathe slow and deep into the belly. Just naturally letting the breath rise and fall. If you're seated on a chair like I am, you can feel the feet on the ground and the legs touching the back of the chair, or the chair, the seat, the sitting bones. So if you're sitting on the ground, just noticing what's touching the ground. If you're laying, just noticing what parts of the body are touching the ground or the wall. Breathing heavy and slow into the belly. Just feeling the heaviness of the seat, of your seat, of the body touching whatever it's touching. And that spine, if you're sitting up, The spine growing tall to the sky. Maybe if you're laying down, just noticing the spine. Still breathing into the belly. Notice the heart space. Maybe placing one hand or both hands over the heart if that feels really nourishing and sweet and kind. Rising up towards the mind and noticing the texture of the mind, the movement or stillness of the mind, whatever the state of the mind is, just notice it without judgment, accepting all, knowing that it is exactly as it should be. Now, move you or guide you through a metta meditation as promised. You can say these phrases after me in the mind, or you can just listen, whatever feels most natural. May I be happy. May I be safe and free from harm. May I be healthy. May I feel and be loved. May I have a peaceful heart. May I have the strength, the courage, and the conviction to face the challenges before me and come through them with more clarity, peace, wisdom, and acceptance. May I be happy. May I be safe and free from harm. May I be healthy. May I feel and be loved. May I have the strength, the courage, and the conviction to face the challenges before me and move through them with more clarity, peace, happiness, empathy, and understanding. One more time here. May I be happy. May I be safe and free from harm. May I be healthy. May I feel and be loved. May I have a peaceful heart. May I have the strength, the courage, and the conviction to face the challenges before me and come through them with more clarity, more peace, more happiness, more empathy, and more understanding. As you sit here and breathe, notice any place in the body that is carrying tightness or discomfort. there a word or an emotion that is part of that tightness or discomfort? Just notice if something comes up. Continue to breathe into this place, noticing how on the exhale, some of the tension leaves the body with the breath. And pause and allow this experience to be here without judgment, without effort. Let go of the thoughts and stories and bring yourself your full attention to what is happening, discovering the sensations in the body and where those feelings are strongest. And just continue to breathe. Asking yourself here and now, what do I most need? What do I most need? Call on your wisest and most loving self. Offer what is most needed. Is there a touch? Perhaps this hand on your heart. A message or an image that helps the discomfort, the hurt part of you receive what it needs. Is there something you can do to help yourself receive what you need? What do I most need? Notice how this part of you responds to the compassion you've offered. Notice. Once again, as I said before, if this is difficult for you, that's okay. See if you can offer yourself acceptance, radical acceptance. Accepting here whatever your experience is in this meditation. I offer you now a few words, and you're welcome to repeat them to yourself mentally, or to just listen, breathing deep and free into the belly. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I approve of myself. I am worth loving. I am willing to change and learn a new way of expressing and experiencing life. I now begin to accept myself exactly as I am. I love and approve of myself. I love and approve of myself. Taking one more breath here. Releasing the breath. Releasing the hands away from the heart and letting them rest somewhere comfortable. letting it all sink in, breathing into your experience, whatever it is, exactly right. And when you're ready, bringing the hands to the heart space, palms together, thumbs resting on the heart space. May the love, the compassion, the nurturing, the acceptance, and the trust you have cultivated for yourself during our practice stay with you all throughout your Tuesday, and may it seep into the rest of your week. It's been an honor to lead you through your practice and to lead this Dharma talk. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself and for your community. Hope you have a beautiful day. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be with you. Thank you. Whenever you're ready, once again, you can drop the hands down to the lap and flutter the eyes open. So we have a few more minutes. If you have any takeaways, you're so welcome, Ruth. Anything you want to pop into the chat, you're welcome, Lisa. Yeah, feel free to drop anything into the chat. Thank you. You're welcome, Joanne. So, just like with Karina, these Dharma talks are fully offered, and donations really do make a difference. So if you'd like to leave a donation for me, a new way to live, yes, it is. I'm so glad, Melissa. I'm so glad you showed up. But I'll pop my my Venmo into the chat. It's also my PayPal, Marlene Maria Martin. And the PayPal is marlenemariamartin@gmail.com. Feel free to leave a donation if you would like. I'm a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, much like Karina. I teach out of Long Beach, California, Yogalution movement. Teach all kinds of classes, strong classes, gentle classes, restorative classes. And I also have a program called Devotion, and it's all about cultivating devotion for yourself and worthiness, cultivating unconditional love, acceptance, and trust in yourself is a cornerstone of devotion to yourself. It's a big part of it. So if you're interested in hearing more about the devotion, feel free to email me. I'll just pop it into the chat. It's just like my Venmo. It's my full name at Gmail, and we can set up a 30-minute free call. Yeah, and if you do that like within the next 24 hours and you're really interested in the program, you want to join, then I'll give you $100 off just for doing that. I hope you have a beautiful day. If you'd like, you can take yourself off of mute and say goodbye to this beautiful community. Bye, everybody. Bye, Jessica. Bye, Ruth. Bye, Julie.
Ciao.
Bye, Joy. Oh, I don't think I heard you, Joanne. Did you say something?
No, but thank you and have a wonderful day.
You're welcome. You too. Bye. Bye, Melissa.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Julie.